You're listening to the Name Drop Podcast, the brainchild of Indie Consulting, a full-service marketing partner. We are here to reveal the industry experts and brilliant founders behind the marketing campaigns and brands you know and love. In a world where things change fast and marketing is the opposite of static, we are here with a behind-the-scenes look on marketing geniuses and how they find their inspiration, hoping to inspire you along the way. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Name Drop Podcast. Today we're sitting down with a really awesome brand marketer. She's going to be sharing her experiences with us on brand and product innovation, what it looks like to build a marketing team in today's day and age, what types of things we should be looking for, and just brand marketing basics. What are some of the marketing 101 aspects that we should all be thinking about, and what are some of the trendier tactics that we might want to be leveraging? Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's your day been?
So far, so good. It's been a busy one.
Yeah?
It always is, though, I suppose.
I know it's what, Wednesday?
It is Wednesday, which is one of my favorite days of the week.
Really?
It is. It's right in the middle.
It doesn't do much for me.
No. Eve, I've heard it described as a high point or a low point. I guess it just depends on your perspective.
Yeah. I just think it's kind of like a filler day.
That's true.
You know, I'm like, I almost prefer Mondays because at least it's the start of something. Wednesday's it's just there.
I guess I see it as it's there and you can see the end of the week coming and you know what you need to get done in order to get to that point.
I like
it's like
that
the
take.
reward on the other side.
I like that take.
There you go.
So what are you thinking about professionally today?
Today, I've been bouncing around a number of things. You know, we're in the midst of that, like, it's July. So you're like straddling this year and trying to figure out what the second half is going to look like, and then planning and strategizing for next year. 3-year planning is something we're working on too. So it's sort of bouncing between the everyday and what I'm doing in the moment, and then thinking about where I want to be next year and where we're going to be 3 years from now. So it's kind of becomes a mental juggle on a regular basis.
No kidding.
Yeah.
When will you have your plans locked for 2025, ideally?
Fall.
Okay.
We'll be locking them in fall, which for many people seems kind of late. I mean, to do sort of this longer planning process through the spring and then sort of finalizing early fall. But that's the speed we work at.
Yeah. It is always interesting when you come up on annual planning, but then you're still executing in the moment and you're talking about like the holidays or even Q1 of next year. And it's like, ugh, this is a mind warp a little bit.
Yeah. We just talked about even yesterday what new items are coming up for the back part of this calendar, and feeling like, and then that's done. I'm like, well, we're starting to talk about Q1. Like it just keeps rolling. Never stops. Never stops.
Well, speaking of that, and without revealing yourself, well, how do you define brand innovation today?
Brand innovation, it can take a lot of different twists and turns. So product is where people mostly go, and thinking about product innovation and what new things you're going to launch and the big splash that comes from that. But I think there's also the world of just what your brand looks like and its evolution of how it shows up to the consumer, how you market, how you communicate. I think all of that starts to wrap into brand innovation because things are changing and moving so fast that very little feels static anymore.
Agree. So when someone's in an innovation role, or if you have, in your experience in innovation roles, what do you think is the biggest innovation lever? Like there are so many things like you described, how the brand shows up, its style, look, feel, tone of voice, but then also its products. What leads?
Oh my goodness. That's like an impossible question to answer. I think product often comes first in people's minds. Yeah. Because it's the thing that it's the thing that gets people excited. It's the thing that allows you to be relevant in the moment with the consumer, to get that PR, to get that splash, or to check a really important strategic goal that you have as an organization. I think most people think product when they think innovation.
That would be my initial response. But I think that's just because it's tangible.
Yeah.
Right?
You can see it, you can taste it, you can feel it, you can experience it at some point, versus saying, oh, we're going to try these new techniques to target consumers. It's just a harder, a harder thing even to sell in an organization about why that's innovative or unique or different.
Yeah. Agree. Agree. And that sounds more like theory, which I think
Yeah.
is hard for people to wrap their heads
Yes.
around.
Especially folks, if you're talking cross-departmentally or in senior leadership, folks that are not like in the weeds or really in the details of some of those pieces of marketing. Product innovation, everyone really, to your point, they get it.
Right.
They see it.
Do you have a certain number of brands or types of brands that you look at who you think are just doing an amazing job innovating today?
I follow certain types of categories because of where I've worked. And I tend to think what I'm seeing a lot of, and maybe it was always like this, but like partnerships. I feel like what a lot of folks are doing is like finding other like-minded brands or other brands that are hip and cool and trying to smash the brands together as one way of innovating and trying to like leverage and get synergy the most that they can.
Yeah.
Just to grab attention.
Do you think it works?
Depends probably on the partnership you pick. I think they're not easy. They're definitely, I think they come out looking easy or they can look like they make a natural fit. But you're now smashing two brands, two companies, two sets of values and objectives and needs into one product. And so I think sometimes they're the hardest ones to execute.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes they do feel like such a miss. I mean, this was creative, so I'll give a nod for their creativity. But I don't know if you saw Knorr, the bouillon cubes.
Soups, yeah.
The little tiny purse that they made.
No.
So they made this little teeny tiny purse that you could put one single bouillon cube in. And then they partnered with like a major fashion influencer and had her like carry this purse to an event. And it's kind of funny, right? Like
it's disruptive.
It's disruptive. And everyone was like, what is the Knorr bag that Paige has? Like it was, all right. But is that audience the right audience for Knorr bouillon cubes? Like I'm going to go with no.
Probably not.
Probably
or
not.
It's not something that then becomes a thing. So
Right.
most people then are not also going to go out and get a little purse for their Knorr bouillon cubes.
No, it's like, it was a cool stunty thing.
Yeah, a
but
stunt.
Does it have legs? I don't know.
I love when you smash up like different categories to some degree like that too. I saw a sneaker company and a beverage company kind of smashing up together. And in a cool way because it played on what that brand, sort of the sneaker brand, is known for. And it shows up in then the artistry of the can or the packaging. And so that
cool.
seems neat when people kind of play. I think it was at Olipop too. They did like the Minions can. Like I'm like, I kind of want that yellow can with that fun character on it. Like I love when people sort of play outside their space in a way that you're like, oh, okay, yellow can, yellow, cartoon character in the moment when the movie launches. Like I get that kind of elevation.
I agree. I mean, some of the
A
partnerships.
little purse, though.
The little purse, weird. Some of the partnerships that like Mattel did when the Barbie movie launched. I mean,
that was brilliant.
I can only imagine the partnerships budget on that must have been literally gazillions of dollars, but they crushed it.
They did.
They absolutely crushed it. It was kind of incredible, honestly. That must have taken somebody like years.
Probably teams of people years when you think about it.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, in that level of planning to also have partner products developed, that takes years, does it not? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. Pretty impressive.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Amazing. So from your perspective, what inspires product innovation? Let's talk a little bit about that.
I think product innovation can be inspired from lots of places. My favorite place is, of course, the consumer, to start there. I mean, to the point of even like the Knorr purse, if there's no consumer need or problem that you're solving or thing that you're trying to go after consumer-wise, it's only going to go so far because people won't really get it. Helping the consumer understand where they may have problems they don't see in their lives and helping to unlock and solve those is a real benefit that you can provide. And so if a product can then go after that, that's where I always love to start. I think in the end, there's business needs. So it's like, how do you find that Venn diagram of like business strategy and inspiration in either changing consumers or changing the territories that you're selling in? And are you going to be able to sort of find new products and ways to go after folks in that regard? And then I walk the grocery store. I've lived most of my life like in CPG, so that's probably harder if you're in like the tech space. I guess at that point you find yourself a virtual shopping crawl. But like I love to walk around a grocery store. I love to look at packaging and product claims and see what other people are putting out there, from the super small like disruptor brands to the super massive like CPG multi-billionaire companies where they've got clearly tons and tons of research budgets, to the folks that are probably listening to consumers more on a day-to-day basis and just finding the trends.
Yeah. I mean, it is good. That is a good way to spot them, honestly.
Grocery stores.
How do you know as a brand when you should be following a trend versus leading a trend?
I guess, I don't know if this is like, I'm going to answer but not answer, because who knows? It's all, it's not if it was a true science, I'd probably make a lot more money.
Seriously, you and me both.
I'd be a major consultant selling this technique. But I think it's in part your risk tolerance as a company, right?
That's a good answer.
How willing are you to fail?
Yeah.
And really spend money and fail? Because that's what you're probably going to do most often if you're trying to set the trend.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to fail, or you don't have the budgets to take the risk, or if you really need it to be a safe bet, then you're probably going to want to be a close like second or third follower.
Yeah. We're working with a cold brew brand right now, and they are talking about, their strategy for the future and product innovation. And they were saying, I thought this was a crazy stat, that something like, 85 to 90% of ready to drink iced coffee beverages that are bought in a grocery store setting is iced coffee, not cold brew, and that they feel like they need to be making more of a splash in the iced coffee space.
Interesting.
And get away from cold brew. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, why not just try to educate and lean into why cold brew is different and better than iced coffee? But I guess that I'm sure that same argument has been had with like Chobani when they did their Greek yogurt, and Oatly with oat milk. It's like, do you try to do a category expansion, or do you try to kind of figure out how to play in the space that's already been created?
Yeah. I feel like and maybe this is where the cold brew company benefits, because it's like, to most consumers, that is a coffee that you drink cold most often, even though you can drink it hot and it's delicious that way. And so they're at least living in the space of like the category norm, where someone is still going to buy that product and treat it like an iced coffee. Yeah. And they can be true to like what differentiates them and what keeps them special. It's when sometimes folks try to step outside of the category norm, but are still like trying to disrupt the category, and then the consumers don't have any idea.
They're like, what's that?
What is this?
Yeah.
I don't understand it to begin with, and you don't look like everything else in the category.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. So in your role today, what aspects of brand marketing are you thinking about or leaning into, I guess?
I am lucky to do like all of it right now in my current role, which is pretty exciting. And so we talk a lot about consistency and how the brand shows up, because we're a regional brand, and brand awareness feels like it's strong, but it isn't always strong. And so how do you show up consistently? How do you, take the strengths that you have in your brand attributes and in the things that the consumer does recognize, and make sure that those are present and come to life, even though I think internally you do start to get tired. The marketers get tired of the graphics well before the consumer does.
That's true.
Keeping a lot of those assets and attributes that consumers do know us by present and consistently there. So that's part of what we do. I think trying to break through, and it's a crowded space that we operate in. There's a lot of players and a lot of innovation and churn. And so how do you stay relevant and stay at the forefront of people's minds when they're going out to make a purchase is something that we talk a lot about. Innovation does show up. So we do innovation, and that can be small scale that stays sort of in our state here. That could be on the broad regional scale. It can be full-time. It could be limited. So there's always like elements of the brand and managing sort of how it shows up and does something for a consumer somewhere that we're always sort of thinking about.
Lots of things.
All the things. Which is fun.
It is fun. Keeps things interesting.
It does.
For sure.
It does.
There's been, and I'm thinking of, I can't remember her name now, some TikToker that has this whole thing about how brand marketing has lost the plot today.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And that like we've gotten so far away from like marketing 101, like
Yeah.
a core simple message and product heroes and maybe like a foundational partnership with another brand. And I hear the point, but I don't know if the plot has been lost necessarily. It's just changed a lot.
It's changed a lot.
I'm curious. What do you think?
I when I think about marketing back in the day, or even like before, just like everything seemed to be online, before we walked around with mini computers in our hands on a regular basis, right? You as a company would create like the one big brand message for the year, companies spent all of their ad dollars and all their research dollars and all their ad testing dollars on like one big message or three big moments maybe throughout the year and one major innovation drop. And so I do think things were more clever and like a little bit more creative at times in that world. And now you have to be creating that big message every day. What is your social post? What is your ad going to look like? How are you going to maximize your impressions and your views and your reach? And you're just always sort of thinking about how to change what you did the day before. Yeah. And that's a big scramble. And so I think then you start to follow just trends. We don't do a ton of that, but that's the one thing I think people sometimes maybe forget, the rule book and the playbook of like the way that marketing used to be done, if they're always just chasing the TikTok trend, right? So that they can break the algorithm,
and try to hit the next big viral moment or whatever it may be.
But then everyone's doing the same dance with their products online.
It does seem like it, honestly. No, that's a good way of putting it. I agree with you. Sometimes there is like an element of creativity that doesn't feel present anymore, but I don't think it comes from a bad place. It's just it's a hustle trying to stay on top of it every single day.
Yes. Content creators are like working their butts off on a daily basis to try to think about, how do I tell the story of the same product to the same people in a different way multiple times a week? Yeah. Whereas again, it used to just be, we're going to run the campaign and it's going to be in magazines and on billboards and maybe TV.
And then we're good to go. Yeah, done. Imagine.
How did it do at the end? That was it.
Oh my gosh. What relationship would you say has had the most impact on you throughout your career?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think I've been lucky to work with great people. I think the people who were parts of my project teams or like worked in support of the work that I was doing, those were people who like helped to build my confidence, helped to build my skills, helped me see like what I was really capable of. I think those instances working with like cross-departmental teams was, I think, one of the big things. I still have certain peers that I meet like and have coffee with like every week or every other week when possible. And then like that peer mentorship sort of level. Yeah. Those are the ones I think I've found a lot of value in. Whereas like, senior leaders that help you, I've always valued that relationship. But it's those peers too that like you can come to with a problem and not be embarrassed about what they're going to think about it being stupid or, being a silly question. And then you find out that they've been dealing with similar, or you can at least help each other. Those are the relationships I think that have really helped me out in my career.
I think it's important. We were talking about that sort of before we started recording. Yeah, it's very important. I agree. Amazing. So tell us who you are, the big reveal.
I am just so excited. I didn't let it go before.
No, you were
this
great.
is the thing I was most nervous about. So I am Dena Wimette, and I am the marketing director at Lawson's Finest Liquids.
Amazing.
That's me.
Let's talk about Lawson's.
It's a beer company. It's an amazing craft beer company. We're based in Vermont. We're most known for Sip of Sunshine, which is a amazing IPA in a beautiful yellow can with a huge sun on it. And, it's a founder-driven company started by a husband and wife, Sean and Karen. And what I love about it is the beer, because it's delicious, but also they're values-based. It's a B Corp, really community-focused. And so it makes it really easy to do marketing for a company that you believe in, like all throughout. I love the product. I love the values, the people, all of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the high and the low of your current role?
Of my current role?
Yes.
I do think the high is being able to just get in on all the things. It's the kind of role that I get to go to one meeting and talk about social media and content and look at posts that we're thinking of doing, and then talk about posters for events at bars, or go into a planning meeting and talk about the 3-year strategic plan and help sort out goals. So I get to see all of it in many ways. Whereas in other roles I've had, you sort of live in your pillar of the organization and you do amazing work in your pillar to support sort of the greater good for the whole. So that's a big high.
Yeah, for sure. What about the low?
Low, I think there's never enough time. There's like never enough time in the day. I find that some days you're just in like back-to-back meetings, which is not the culture per se of the organization. So I'm so used to having space and time, because so much of what we do is sort of ad hoc and collaborative work, so that when I'm in like a full day of scheduled back-to-back meetings, like by the end I'm just exhausted, and my brain is spinning, and I have this backlog of like all of the tasks on my list that still need to get done.
That's fair.
Those are tough days.
Yes.
There aren't a lot of them.
Yeah, those days are never that great, to be honest.
It's probably like everybody's though.
Yeah, I'm like,
in many
why
ways.
do I do this to myself? Right. So how did you get to Lawson's? Talk about your journey.
My journey.
Yeah.
So before I was at Lawson's Finest, I was at Ben & Jerry's. So I was at Ben & Jerry's 15 years and served in that organization, brand management, advertising, and the bulk of it was really innovation. So I spent a long time doing like new product development and sort of heading up that team for the U.S. business and for even some of the new markets.
Awesome.
That was pretty amazing. That's the bulk of like where I spent my marketing life. I was at IRI for a little while doing marketing research. I got my MBA at Northeastern in Boston. And before that, I swore I was going to be a psychologist.
Did you?
I mean, I did. I thought I was going to be a doctor.
I thought I was going to be a psychologist.
And then a psychologist.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to get a job working at like a startup tech company right before going back to school, and like fell in love with business and found myself on a totally different path. Yeah.
Similar. I thought I was going to be a social worker.
There you go.
And I took all the classes to do it. And then I took some internships before I was going to go to grad school. And then I was like, wait a minute.
This is
I
more
actually
fun.
like this.
I'm good at this.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah.
My parents were like, oh, thank God they didn't want me to be a social worker.
I get that too.
You know?
That's a hard job.
That is a hard job.
That's a harder job than a marketer.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be way harder, I think, than what I'm doing now. So
Probably.
I probably chose the right path. Do you talk us through the process? So it sounds like you came from a big organization into a smaller organization.
Yes.
We were talking before we came on that you built your team from scratch.
I did.
What was that like?
It was exciting and scary.
Yeah.
I would say all at the same time. I came on board when they were in a pause. They hadn't really had marketing leadership for about a year. So everybody was doing marketing for a little while.
Okay.
And the team had turned over. Like this was coming out of COVID and just this sort of churn that comes with the difficulty of how that world worked.
Yeah.
And so I started, and there were 2 interns that they had brought in that started like the day before I did. And these 2 folks were amazing and also new in their career, coming out of college or had transitioned from the tap room over into marketing. And so I sort of joined with this fresh team, and my job was to build the rest of the organization. And so I did a lot of like internal interviews. And so I tried to really learn the job, learn what Lawson's Finest was like and what they needed. Like, again, coming from a really big company, marketing was like 20 people deep, just in the US, you know, to trying to sort out what kinds of roles made the most sense for what Lawson's Finest's needs were.
Right.
And so it was really learning on the job for myself in the role, and then also determining like where the gaps were and how to fill them.
That's awesome. So
It was fun.
How long has it taken you? How has your team grown since you started?
So it started with myself and then 2 folks who then we brought on full time and sort of crafted different roles for them than what the internships were. And then took a break. So there was about a 6-month pause in between sort of formalizing those 2 and myself, and then hiring the next member of the team. And so that break was really helpful for a few months in just sort of letting the dust settle a little and seeing, okay, now that there's 3 of us, how is it going and where are the gaps and what's the culture like between our group and how do we want to preserve that? What are the things we want to make sure we keep in the next hire? And so then we brought another person on about a year and a half ago. And so that's been our crew. So we're a team of 4. We've had some intern help here and there. And then we're also super connected with like the sales team and the tap room. And so there's a lot of also that sort of cross-departmental sort of teamwork and support that gets done.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we were talking before a little bit about lack of creativity sometimes in what we see in marketing today, just given the state of the like churn and burn of content.
Yeah.
How do you keep creativity in your team or inspire it, I guess?
I love creativity. I think that if I had to choose like what happens at the end of this career and I move on to the next one, like I want to do like a whole thing on creativity. Like that's the psychologist in me would be like totally stoked to do like a whole thing on human creativity and like fostering creative thought. I know.
I love
it's my new thing.
Okay.
So if you figure out how to get me on that path, you let me know.
I'll let you know,
Molly.
for sure.
But I think, my role as the director is to like support and to foster. And my team, they're very creative folks. They're super creative. And what they just need is to know that there's a safety net. And so part of it is explaining that and showing that failure is going to be part of being creative. Right. You're not going to nail every social post. You're not going to nail every piece of content. You're going to totally suck on some of it. And that's super cool. It's how do you learn from those issues that we find and what do we learn from them? So that's the first thing. And then we do creative meetings. We try to sit together as a group, and the team then gets to sort of bounce and work together, sort of building and again, showing fault and then also growth within each other. And then I found an article once, and it was a video about like running the water. Have you ever seen this about dirty pipes, which is sort of like a weird thing to think about, but this individual talked about how with creativity you have to run the water. And at first you run through and it's dirty because you're cleaning out the pipe. And so all the stuff you come up with in the first part of a brainstorm is total crap, And until you run through that, though, you don't get to clean water and you don't get to the really great ideas. And so I brought this to the team early on as just a thought starter. And to this day, we'll do brainstormings and sometimes they're totally terrible. And one of the folks on the team will be like, we're just running through the pipes. Like, we're just working our way through the pipes. And eventually you do get to this beautiful place. And so it's also like fostering the process for them. When they do get to that point where they're like blocked, it's like, okay, how do you want to work through this? Everyone gets blocked. You're probably not going to solve it sitting in front of your computer.
Yeah, no, definitely
Go
not.
take a walk.
Right.
Go somewhere. You need to leave your space if you're feeling blocked and where you want to go so that you can try to spark it again.
How do you stay creative?
I watch like a lot of like, the videos, and I just love to surf through Instagram or other people's content just to like see it. Not even necessarily even process what I'm looking at.
I'm the same way.
Does that make sense?
No,
like
it definitely
if you asked me what I looked at today, I have no idea.
No, I wouldn't be able to tell you either. No. But I know I consumed, I hopefully picked up on something in that process. Yeah.
So I think some of it is just like being in the world of where you need to be. I love to read articles. I like to paint, and like when I feel the need to like spark my own creativity, I'll tend to like pick up a paintbrush and do some watercolor. I like to learn. So I do find like when I'm feeling static, I'll like learn how to do something new. Yeah. It could be a new recipe. It could be a new piece of technology, just anything to sort of return my brain on and get it going again.
Yeah. Yeah. So the graveyard for creativity is just sitting at your desk.
Sitting at my desk. No. Get up. Walk around.
I have to. Yeah. Usually, walking, running, like movement. Music helps. Cooking. Yeah. I like totally zone out when I'm cooking and I can think through different things, which is nice. But whenever I'm stuck, I'm like, all right, I just got to close the computer, come back to this later because it's not going to change just sitting here staring at it.
It never gets fixed staring at it.
No, it definitely doesn't. How has the beer industry been different than your previous CPG experience? Ice cream specifically,
The cool thing was that Lawson's Finest Liquids, being values driven, being B Corp, being best when it's cold and always being kept cold. Like those things felt really familiar to ice cream.
Yeah.
I walked in and it was amazing to have conversations that started to sound very similar. The brands are both pretty whimsical, have a lot of illustration. And so like even that felt kind of comfortable, which was great when you start something new. And I was so comfortable with ice cream. Like I felt like I knew it like innately almost, that it felt like a big switch to change into a beer. I think beer is a little more dynamic than ice cream, or at least like the big ice cream of like the Ben and Jerry's and that tier. There's always something new. It's like breweries are constantly launching new things, and it's like, how do you stay on top of the competition but not really focus on the competition and stay focused instead on the internal side of the business? But it's definitely, I think, a faster moving in terms of churn and just innovation. And it's at a different life stage. The category of beer and craft beer especially, it's gone from this huge skyrocketing growth to now more of a leveled maturity. Whereas I feel ice cream, like at least when I joined Ben and Jerry's, was already kind of at that level state. And so you're playing very different games in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. Have you struggled with the regulatory restrictions with marketing?
It's been okay.
Okay.
Because I think at the end of the day, we're all about responsible consumption.
Right.
And interestingly, full-fat ice cream, you also are focused on making sure you're marketing responsibly.
That's very true. Yeah.
So that like never felt like a big difference.
Yeah.
But the hard thing with the regulations is they change by state. And so, you know, as we look at ourselves in 10 states and thinking about growing even beyond that, it's knowing different things you can do and not do in each one.
Right.
So
and having to tailor. Yeah.
It's been interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you miss the ice cream world?
I do at times. I love food.
Yeah.
And I'm picky, and so I'm like, we joke I'm a foodie that doesn't really eat a lot of foods.
Really? I didn't know this
Oh my
about
God.
you.
You show me a radish, I can probably tell you where it's from and like what to cook with it, but I won't eat it.
Really?
Yeah. But I love food and food trends and flavor trends and sort of even like that whole world of natural products and those disruptive brands. I just think there's so much cool stuff that happens. And I think with Ben and Jerry's especially, you were focused on the trends, and that company and that brand was really built on understanding what was happening in the world around you. And so I do miss that a little bit versus beer, which is a lot less, you know, foodie trend driven.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you mentioned at 21 you thought you maybe were going to be a psychologist.
I did.
But at 23 when you were working at IRI, did you think you would be doing what you're doing today?
I don't think so. I don't think I just don't think I understood it. And I'm like, shame on me, I guess. But like I thought marketing equaled advertising when I like really first got into it, and I just didn't realize you have to be analytical and you have to be number centric to like really succeed as like in brand and to help run, because you are managing a P&L and you're helping to manage big budgets and figure out where to make your spend most efficient. You have to understand the consumer and how to effectively talk to them and connect with them. You have to be able to relate to people and work within an organization across every department. Like I just don't think I understood how many skills you have to flex to be a marketer and to be a successful marketer. And so I just was like, oh, I'll crunch numbers.
Right.
I like numbers.
Yeah,
like that was
me
me at 23. I love
Yeah.
marketing research and I love learning about the consumer and I love data. So I figured that would be my impact on marketing.
Yeah. I don't think I realized it either. I think I thought it was looking at an Excel spreadsheet or developing like a TV spot, and those were basically your options for marketing. Like that was marketing. And part of the goal with this podcast is to talk to people that have no one's role that we've spoken to yet looks the same. Like everyone's touch on marketing is so different. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I have like nieces and nephews that are now in college and like on their way on the other side and starting to work, and we'll hear about their major and, oh, I'm majoring in marketing. And I'm like, great. what do you like about marketing? Like, what does marketing mean to you? What is it? Because they want to know then, like, well, what should I do?
Right.
And my next question is like, well, what do you like? You know, because it can look so many different ways
100%
to be in a marketing.
It's kind of crazy, really. I'm waiting for at least marketing titles to start to diversify a little bit more, but I don't know. I think there's a whole semantic exercise around that probably won't happen for a long time. So interesting. Okay, so let's move on to some trendy and tragic topics. So I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to tell me if you think it's trendy or tragic.
And then will you tell me what you think?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay,
I always love when people ask me back. Taylor Swift.
I do love Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She is pretty trendy, and I hope she doesn't become tragic. But fair. I do love her music. And I think what she's been able to do, like if I think about the Mattel Barbie example, like just changing economies by showing up is pretty phenomenal.
I agree. I think trendy too. Yeah. I'm a huge fan. I have been for a long time.
Yeah, I liked her before everybody liked her.
Me too. And honestly, when people say they hate her, I'm like, suspect.
I know.
I'm like, why? That's a weird thing. Because I can't hate. How can you hate her, really? I mean, she's crushing it.
She is crushing it. And she's got good music.
Yes, she does. Agree. Spiked seltzers.
This is a hard one because of my industry.
I know.
I don't like spiked seltzers mostly. Yeah. I find it difficult to find one that I like. They're a little too sweet. I do like. No, I'm gonna go tragic.
Okay.
I'm trying to find a good because I'm a nice.
You're like, I could
human,
kind of
and I'm
be
like,
into.
no. I think they were super trendy and they're becoming tragic.
Yeah. I've always been tragic on these.
Perfect.
I love a seltzer without the alcohol.
Yeah.
I could drink 5 pullers a day, but for some reason the alcoholic ones just don't do it for me.
No. I prefer like the cocktail versions where you throw a little vodka in and it's less about like a malt beverage than I'm on board.
Agree.
A little bit more on board.
Agree. Like if someone offers me a high noon, I'll say no. I would rather have
just water.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know if I'm
or
mature.
Or a Lawson's finest beer.
Yes, exactly.
Time.
Or a beer.
You go sip of sunshine.
Maple flavored things. Since we're in Vermont, I have to ask.
Like maple flavored?
Yes.
Or maple as a flavor?
Maple as a flavor.
Depends on the thing.
Okay.
I do put maple in my coffee every day. Maple syrup is delicious in coffee.
It is.
It's because you get the sweetness and it sort of cuts the bitter. And so I do like maple as a sweetener, as a substitute for sugar. But I am not about to go like douse my pancakes in it.
Okay.
It's a little sweet.
Okay.
Maple creamies are good. I prefer like a chocolate vanilla twist.
Do you?
I do.
I love a maple creamy.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then do you put the little like maple sprinkles on top too?
No, that's a little much.
That's
a step too far.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the limitations you put on maple.
I like it as a sweetener as well. I like it in coffee. I'll put it on a pancake, but I don't really need to like start having savory things with maple flavoring on them. That's weird to me. No, thank you.
I'd rather like honey barbecue sauce.
Yes.
Than maple barbecue sauce. And maybe now they're going to make me leave the state. I don't know.
They might.
Possible.
They're like, she's out of here. She doesn't love maple on everything. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
This is fun.
Super fun. Where can people find you and Lawson's?
You can find me in Vermont, outside of the Burlington area. And you can find Lawson's Finest in the Northeast.
Amazing.
The whole Northeast. And sometimes in Colorado.
Yeah, check it out. It's very good. I love Sip of Sunshine. So
it's a good
I'm
beer.
a fan.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.
All right. So you guys can find us on Instagram at namedrop.pod. And I'm at Malbakes. Thanks so much.